Hypergamous women don't end up alone because men abandoned them. They end up alone because the market they tried to outsmart eventually outgrew them. That's the part they never see coming until it's too late. Before we go deeper, hit subscribe and like the video. This is DepthRealm, where we expose the shadows so you can see the truth. Every woman believes she's the exception. Every woman believes she deserves the best man in the room. Every woman believes she can do better than the man who loves her. Hypergamy isn't a behavior. It's a hunger, an ancient evolutionary script whispering, get the highest value man you can. Never settle. Always upgrade. But no one warned women what happens when that instinct collides with a modern world full of endless options, infinite comparison, and a dating market with brutal memory. What happens is simple. The instinct that was supposed to secure her future begins destroying it. Hypergamy always ends the same way, with a woman chasing a man who isn't chasing her, wanting a man who doesn't want her, and holding out for a fantasy that never materializes. And it begins long before she's aware of it. When she's young, hypergamy feels like power. Every man looks her way. Every man wants a chance. Every man wants her number. She confuses male desire with female value. She believes unlimited attention means unlimited opportunity. She believes the flood of admiration will never slow. She believes the men at the top will always be there waiting for her. She doesn't realize those men aren't admiring her future. They're admiring her moment. But inside her mind, a story forms. If men at this level want me now, I can always get better later. This is where the hypergamous seed begins to sprout. She dates a good man in her early 20s, loyal, stable, consistent. But she's restless. She thinks she can do better. Her friends hype her up. Social media inflates her ego. Attention from strangers convinces her that she's operating below her true market value. She leaves the man who loved her because he wasn't exciting enough, rich enough, tall enough, ambitious enough, high status enough. She doesn't say those words out loud. She says it in softer language. I just don't feel it anymore. I need to focus on myself. I think I deserve more. I'm not ready to settle. Translation: Hypergamy told her she can upgrade. And she listened. So she enters the open market. And at first it feels like heaven. Men with better bodies, better money, better lifestyles, better confidence. She tastes the top of the market, but only briefly, because those men aren't choosing her. They're sampling her. They aren't auditioning to be her partner. They're using her for entertainment while they pursue the women they actually want. But she doesn't recognize the difference. She mistakes male attention for male investment. She mistakes male interest for male intention. She mistakes being desired for being valued. She thinks she's leveling up. She thinks she finally knows her worth. She thinks she's entering the tier she belongs in. But hypergamy has a clock. It starts silent. Then it begins ticking. At 25, she thinks she has time. At 28, she thinks she still has options. At 30, she believes men are intimidated. At 32, she believes men her age aren't serious. At 34, she believes men need to step up. At 36, she believes men are trash. At 38, she believes it's not her, it's them. At 40, she begins to panic. Because now she sees it. The attention she took for granted has dried up. The admiration she thought was permanent has evaporated. The men she once considered beneath her don't even look in her direction anymore. And the men she still desires, the high-value men she held out for, now see her as invisible. Hypergamy told her to aim higher. Biology told her time was limited. She listened to one and ignored the other. And nature never forgives that mistake. But the story gets darker. Because now she tries to return to the men she once rejected, the loyal ones, the stable ones, the good men. She searches her social media history. She scrolls through old messages. She revisits men she dismissed years ago. She reaches out with a soft smile, a warm tone, a nostalgic comment. But those men have moved on. They're married. They're fathers. They're fulfilled. They built a life with women who appreciated them when they were still accessible. Nothing wounds a hypergamous woman more deeply than discovering the men she thought were beneath her are now beyond her. And this is where emotional collapse begins. She downplays her past standards. I never said I needed a rich man. She rewrites her history. I was just young back then. She blames her exes. They didn't fight for me. She blames the culture. Men don't commit anymore. She blames the market. Dating is impossible today. She blames anything except the truth. Her hypergamous peak came and went, and she mistook temporary leverage for permanent power. Now she faces the most brutal phase, reality. Hypergamy promised her abundance. Reality gives her scarcity. Hypergamy promised her options. Reality gives her loneliness. Hypergamy promised her a high-value man. Reality gives her men who are emotionally unavailable, economically unstable, or only seeking casual encounters. She eats the crumbs of attention she once threw away. She accepts the bare minimum she once mocked. She becomes grateful for what she once laughed at. The woman who rejected men for not being enough now attracts men who give nothing. And still, she waits for the man she believes she deserves. The dream man. The fantasy. The upgrade she held out for. But that man never comes. Not because she isn't valuable, but because hypergamy misled her. Hypergamy said, hold out for the best. Reality says, you ignored the good for too long. Hypergamy said, men will always want you. Reality says, men want youth, femininity, loyalty, and warmth. Not ego, entitlement, and delayed gratitude. Hypergamy said, you can always do better. Reality says, the man you left was the best you ever had. And here is the darkest truth. Hypergamous women don't end up alone because men abandon them. They end up alone because the man they want has too many options, and the men who want them, they no longer want. Loneliness is not the punishment. It's the byproduct of a strategy that collapses under its own weight. Let me show you real stories. Sarah, 29, dated a kind, dependable man for 4 years. Left him because he lacked ambition. Now at 33, she dates casually, but none of the high-value men commit. Her ex? He married a woman who admired him. Sarah scrolls through their wedding photos in silence. Andrea, 35. Successful, confident, independent. Rejected good men in her 20s because she wanted someone on her level or above. Now the men above her level date women 24 to 28. She tries to match their standards with money, travel, lifestyle, and confidence, but men don't value what she values. They value things she no longer has. Melissa, 40. Hypergamy made her believe she could always upgrade. Now she sits at expensive dinners with men who talk about themselves, their exes, their options, and she is just another option. She cries on the drive home, not because the men are bad, but because for the first time in her life, the mirror shows her the truth. This is the collapse cycle. This is the hypergamy fallout. This is the emotional recession no one discusses. But let's go deeper into the psychology. Hypergamy isn't about greed. It's about fear. Fear of choosing wrong. Fear of settling. Fear of missing out. Fear of committing too early. Fear of picking a man who won't protect her future. Fear of losing status, comfort, security, and admiration. So she delays commitment waiting for certainty, but certainty never comes. And while she waits, men choose women who don't treat relationships like risk calculations. By the time she's ready to love without conditions, the men she wants are no longer available. But here is the final twist. Hypergamy doesn't punish women. It punishes women who misunderstand it. Hypergamy works when a woman chooses early, chooses wisely, and invests deeply. It collapses when she treats dating like a stock market, buying at the peak and selling at the bottom. And that's why hypergamous women end up alone. Not because they're unworthy, not because they're unlovable, but because they chased fantasy while rejecting reality. A woman who chooses love early wins. A woman who chooses ego early loses. Every time. Across every culture. Across every generation. Across every psychological study of pair bonding. And once you understand that pattern, you can never unsee it. See the pattern. Protect your energy. This is DepthRealm.